Hello Mouses! Well, over the last week or so I've been reading the first 3 Anita Blake Vampire Hunter novels. I picked them up on a book signing tour for Jen, my wife's seventh book. First one that we've been doing the tour for. I get confused. But anyway, one of the bookshops that we're in had a very good special offer on of 3 for £10, so I picked up 3 of them, the first 3. And they're actually surprisingly good. I wish I'd bought the rest of them now. Well, I say the rest of them. I've seen on one of the Penny Arcade comics, which is actually what drew my attention to them in the first place, that they kind of devolve into porn. So I looked up when that was, and it's about book 10. Well, I've read the first 3, so I might get up to book 9 and then sort of stop there. Because I'm enjoying them, but I'm not really into porn, you know? Because, let's face it, I've made my stance on porn fairly clear before, whereas you don't really need a huge book for it if you're into that sort of thing. Because Google's there, and there are plenty of people out there sharing all kinds of weird stories if you want to read something. Or just pictures if you want to look at something. But anyway, that's not actually what I want to talk about, because what really got me interested was the idea of vampires existing and potentially getting the right to vote. That's what seems to be happening in these books I've just been reading. And the idea that someone so old could still have a say in how society, modern society is run, really intrigues me. Because what are the effects? Let's say all of a sudden we've had people that have lived forever, and they have all the rights that we do, and they can vote for policies just as we can in terms of political parties or whatever, depending on how the political system works in your country. But the idea seemed very strange to me, because let's look at it from an old-fashioned point of view. Now you've got this group of people, they're old, they're powerful, they've got set in their ways because they've got their views from their time. Because remember, if you go far enough back, people thought that black people were slaves, that was how they were. And if you go back even further than that, you've got the Roman Empire where, oh, you're not a Roman citizen, well, you can't vote or have very many rights, you can't own land and you can't do anything, and chances are you're probably a slave or some sort of peasant who is tiered to a landowner if you're living in the time of Diocletian, or anyone after him in fact. So there are different views that are quite alien to us as modern people. We don't have slaves, we don't have landed gentry like they did in the Middle Ages and so forth, so we really can't associate with that. But if they were immortal, they would still be here now, having their views heard. So what I came up with is that there are 2 possible consequences of immortal people having a vote. The first being that society can't function properly, because all of these very old, very powerful people still have sway over Parliament, and they will band together to block any change to their view, because it's their view and they think they're right, just as we as modern people think our views are right. Because as a society we change and evolve due to changing attitudes becoming the norm. For example, the free love in the 60s, well, that would have looked pretty out of place back in Oliver Cromwell's time. Actually no, perhaps not, because Cromwell was an oddity. He took power by force, and then once he was dead it kind of fell apart around his corpse. And then Charles II came along as the party king. And I'm getting off topic. But what we were talking about, yes. So, what would happen is we'd get factionalisation, very strong factionalisation, and a falling apart of strong political ties. Because the old guard would be in this corner, and then the new guard are over here, trying to build up a power base based on the fact that their views can't topple those until they can get more people who don't like those views. And then it takes ages. And society basically devolves into infighting, arguments, and collapse. So what's the alternative to that? Well, the alternative to factionalisation and basically splitting and splintering into different social groups that would eventually secede from one another because of their differing views becoming so alien to one another is, well, that's simple. In order to get anywhere within the established political structure, a person would have to toe the line of the old guard. What we basically have here is an age-based system. So you've been around for hundreds of years, thousands of years, or whatever, and your views are the norm. And anyone who wants to become part of the political elite has to toe your line. They have to say what you say, they have to think what you think, and go on from there. So we have what is effectively stagnation. If you don't toe the line, then they all band together to throw you out. And with that becomes a collapse of society as well, because it goes nowhere. You end up with basically ancient Egypt, where nothing much changes from year upon year upon year and through the centuries until Rome comes along and kicks your ass, to put it bluntly. And no alternative is very good from that point of view. And this is what worries me, because the earliest conservative estimates of when the singularity will appear is within the lifespan of our grandchildren. That's people of my age having children whose children will grow up and become the first people that have to deal with what is effectively immortality. It may happen later on, but let's just look at it from the point of view that it's going to happen with our grandchildren. Or our children. If you're younger than I am, you're in the generation that's my children's generation. I don't have children, but if I did, then you know what I mean. I'm getting off topic again. But the singularity is the point at which society becomes so different that anyone that came before it cannot understand the society that comes after. And that's the problem we are facing, because of the political structure that's going to happen. Because if the singularity appears within the lifespan of our grandchildren, provided it doesn't happen right at the end of their lives, then we have a possibility of becoming the first generation of immortal people. So we are effectively, in this best case scenario anyway, going to be the old guard. And bearing this in mind, we have to decide whether we're going to allow change or cause society to stagnate. Because either way, we're going to face problems. So bearing in mind that problems are coming, it's about time we start thinking how we can solve them. And with that in mind, I've been Zoe Kirk Robinson, you've been watching a video, and we can discuss this later.